This video is about a very special place, somewhere enjoyed by thousands of people and home to all manner of wildlife. The lake suffered a terrible fish kill, and I, along with the local fishermen, decided to get stuck in to try and save the fish that were dying. Here is how the events unfolded. On the 13th of August, a dog walker named Penny noticed a handful of dying and distressed fish at the park lake.
Oh dear, this is a very sad sight. Oh my goodness, all these fish are dead. Or in the throes of dying.
At around 10 AM, I decided to head over there and check it out. Now, this is a lake that holds a lot of memories for myself and my brother, somewhere that we fished when we were much younger, a place that actually kind of put us on the map as far as fishing and YouTube videos is concerned. The Park Lake campaign was our most successful film for years and years, and we enjoyed fishing this place so much. When I arrived, I found numbers of dead fish floating in the water. The surviving fish weren't looking good, up at the surface, gasping for air, trying to breathe. In the case of distressed animals like this, you would normally call the landowner, potentially the owner of said animals, but in this case, the local council who control the park weren't answering the phone. I was worried though. This number of dead fish meant that something was terribly wrong with the water quality, and I suspected that it was low oxygen levels in the lake. Speaking to the Environment Agency on the phone, they confirmed to me that it probably was an oxygen crash. However, they just didn't have the resources to be able to do anything about it. Feeling a little helpless and without the relevant organisation's support, I decided to go for it myself and try and save the remaining fish. To re-oxygenate the water, I'd have to get something splashing and moving the surface water to get more oxygen from the air to dissolve into that water. I was going to need a pump. From a nearby tool hire store, I rented a petrol pump and headed back home to pick up some tools. A storm was now rolling in, and the massive drop in air pressure would result in further reduced levels of oxygen. We were going to have to get down there pretty quick if we were going to have any chance of saving those remaining fish. Right, I've got to put those in the van. So I've got a post to hold the pipe, inlet pipe and outlet pipe, money for fuel. Yeah, cool, right.
Bye.
Bye. I'll put these pliers in as well. Oh, I certainly wasn't expecting a storm like this. Absolutely out of nowhere. The heavens have erupted. Jeez. On the way back to the lake, Matthew from the Environment Agency called me back.
Is that half mist?
Yeah, it is. And explained what I had to do with the pump. Nice one. Right, well anyway, I'll let you get back to it.
Yeah,
A few other anglers had turned up at the lake, having heard what was going on through social media, and together we began setting up the pump.
Isn't it rain we're doing?
right, yeah. Not actually.
It wasn't too easy to get the desired effect, but we soon had water spraying out over the surface, helping the fish breathe. The park ranger had now arrived and his pump was running too. Between them, these two pumps would provide the fish with a safe zone where they could just about breathe, but we weren't yet sure whether or not this lifeline was going to be enough to keep those fish alive. The next challenge was to remove all of the dead fish from the water. There's probably nothing that smells worse than dead fish, but we're going to have to take the fish out of the lake because there's just a chance if we leave them in the water they'll go, rotten and they'll suck the remaining oxygen out of the water. It's definitely best not to let the fish that are dead already pollute the water any further, so we're going to try and grab them all out, take them all out and dispose of them elsewhere. The smell of those dead fish was horrendous. I was just gagging every time I got near them. It was really, really nasty work, but it had to be done. Those fish had to be removed from the water to avoid further polluting the lake.
There's a pipe down there.
We removed in total around about 100 fish, ranging from small roach and perch up to larger tench and also pike.
We're gonna go dispose of them somewhere. I'm thinking chuck them in the woods where the foxes can eat them, or bury them. The guy from the council didn't want us to just lob them in the bushes because he said the passers-by wouldn't like the smell. And I don't blame him, because they stink. But at least they're not in the water now. At least they're not polluting the remaining fish that are in there. So that's hard work though, man. I don't think I've lifted that many fish in a day for a while.
A bad day's fishing.
Yeah, a bad day's fishing, yeah.
Amongst all this death, it seemed that the carp, however, were holding on. These are the largest fish that are in the lake, and they seemed quite on the ball. They moved straight over to where the pumps were and seemed like they were using that area to breathe. A group of local anglers all came together, and between us we organised a bit of a rota. We made sure that there was always someone at the lake keeping an eye on the pumps to ensure that they weren't stolen, but also keeping those, the petrol pump and also the generator topped up with fuel. Whilst at the lake, I actually managed to speak to someone from the council, and he basically explained to me that fishing has actually been banned on the lake since January. So, I mean, I found that a little bit ironic, considering very soon before he'd been praising the anglers for their work up at the lake. But yeah, I was quite sad to hear that fishing had actually been banned on the Park Lake.
Matthew from the Environment Agency came down to the lake to assess the situation. He had a probe with which he could test oxygen levels. Seeing the incredibly low reading, we realised we may need to do more to save these fish.
The council took their pump away the following day, and we did our best to source another one. Thankfully, Rick from Basement Pump stepped in and lent us some equipment.
So you've got that, you've got that.
Sadly, and despite our best efforts, we noticed a fish floated up dead the next day. It turned out to be the second largest and probably the most prized fish in the lake. A fish that I'd actually caught many, many years before. And as you can imagine, local anglers, people who were trying to catch that fish, people who had potentially caught it in the past or knew about it, were all pretty gutted to see that one had passed away. Because the suspended algae in the lake photosynthesizes, it therefore produces oxygen during the day, but when it comes to nighttime, the dying algae actually takes oxygen out of the water. What that means is the very early hours of the morning are the period where oxygen levels in the lake are at their lowest. That's the time when fish are likely to die in an oxygen crash like this. So we had to work pretty much through the night trying to get the generator mended. Sadly, we couldn't mend the one we had, but managed at the last minute to source another one which worked perfectly, meaning that the pumps were running by morning and those fish had all gathered up around the pumps, and those pumps were basically keeping them alive at this stage. Our plan to oxygenate the water in the lake was working. The fish had pretty much been saved, but how long were we going to have to keep these pumps going?
At first, when I came down, I was like, oh, I'll just bang the pump on for a few hours, save the fish. And then I was like, oh no, this is going to be like weeks, quite possibly, you know? So we're just having to sit here and watch as they waddle around in very shallow, horrible looking green water. We just want rain. We just want rain. Yeah. Fill it up to here and we're all good.
After 3 days I returned home as I needed to get some work done and have a shower, but I returned the following evening for the night shift. Eventually we had some rain and I tried to clear the overgrown stream bed. However, in the end it just dried up and no fresh water actually reached the lake. A local resident called Tim stepped in to help as well, and he lent us a really good quality pump, and that meant that we could return the rented one, saving a little bit of money. This new pump was super powerful, and with the Venturi system given to us by Matthew from the Environment Agency, it was now sucking loads of air down and pushing it around the lake. I then had a chance to look forward and start to think about what could be done to ensure this doesn't happen in the future. Of course, oxygen crashes happen most years on lakes all around the country, but on this particular water it had been a lot more severe than you'd normally expect. And the reason for this is because leaks in the lake's dam had been leaking out for about 5 years now. Those leaks, gone unmended and unfixed, basically resulted in the lake being much shallower and much muddier than it should have been. Since the fish kill, I have spoken to countless locals, dog walkers and fishermen, and collectively they all want the lake to be preserved and protected in the future. East Sussex County Council have informed me that they won't be doing any work on the lake, they won't be fixing the dam, they won't be desilting the lake, as, in their words, their priorities lie elsewhere. They also won't give me any information as to whether or not fishing will be allowed at the lake in the future. They have also told me that the council will be handing over management of the site to Sussex Wildlife Trust. I applied for permission to do the work on the dam and fix the leaks, however they turned down that application. I even offered to crowdfund, raise the money ourselves to do the work, but once again they turned down my application to do so. But maintaining the lake is essential if it's going to provide a home for wildlife in the future. If the work isn't done, then the lake will just dry up in coming years. I will continue to put pressure on the council and the Wildlife Trust to ensure that the lake is protected and looked after for the wildlife and the people who love it. I will also be doing everything I can to convince the Wildlife Trust to once again permit fishing on the lake, as after all, it was the anglers who stepped in to save the lake during its hour of need. Eventually the rains came and flowed down into the lake. This had been what we were waiting for weeks. So after 7 days, with fishermen volunteering at the lake around the clock, the vast majority of the carp, along with some of the smaller species, were finally saved. Yes, the stock of the more vulnerable species like tench, pike and perch had been severely affected, but with a bit of teamwork, we had successfully managed to save the remaining fish. Whilst this video may not have been the most positive one on our channel, I do feel that this message needs to be heard. People need to stick up for their local waters and protect the environments that we fish within. I hope you've enjoyed watching the video, and we'll probably see you next week with another normal fishing video. See ya.